the same as the concrete. This is porous pavement.
April 22nd, 2019 Architectural and Historic Review Board meeting. We have a few items on our agenda, so let's get started with a continuation from the last meeting, 169 Judson Avenue. Can you take the mic, introduce yourself, and unless something has changed, we already have the drawing.
Yep, so my name is Brian Kyle, I'm the 69 Judson. Now Haynes, who's my architect, is not able to make this meeting, so I'm doing this myself. But he did supply you with the drawing, and I also have the digital copy here as well. So I believe the feedback from the last meeting, so this is if you'd like, I can take you through the three screenshots.
Sure.
Good. So what you're looking at here is basically the current status of the house, the two small dormers, and the feedback. The original drawing looked like this, with three dormers. The feedback is that they're both too large, so he's shortened this down a little bit, and this drawing right here. As you can see, he's made this smaller, a little bit more, you know, in concert with the rest of the house, I guess you could say, but still being functional. I must say, it looks a little better on my screen than it does there. It's a little distorted, but probably have to draw it.
Yeah, it's a little distortion in that, but that's what the paper copies are for, and the last meeting we needed these to review them. I think that, you know, there's a few parts to this project. One part at the back, you know, the kind of major part, we thought looked good. We didn't have any comments on that component, and initially our suggestion was to review the original dormer sizes and bring them down to scale with the house. And I think a good measure of that is to look at the size of the window downstairs, for example, and the size of the windows that are proposed upstairs. And you can, and even in the revised version, I still think that, you know, while some, I would say, very minor effort was made to reduce them in scale, and we like to see some progress towards that. It's just simply not enough. And I mean, you can see the outline of the dormers to the right and left, and it's kind of, you know, it's a couple of inches smaller, quite literally. And so I just, that's not enough of a reduction in scale to kind of bring those dormers in line with what we think is an appropriate scale for them, given this house. Now, I think there were some other suggestions that were thrown around of other possible alternatives, because I understand you want to create some bedrooms up there, but you know, that your needs have to be balanced with the neighbors, and so I you know, I'm still suggesting that this needs to come, the dormers need to come down in scale, or be addressed in a different way. I think what was the suggestion you made?
I think the center one should be a shed that connects the two, and I thought he might come up with a design, because I'm not the designer.
Yeah, no, it's not for us, or, yeah, I don't know, I mean, so
In
there's
fact,
plenty of other
I saw a
options.
house that's similar to that, you know, on my walk on Saplon Avenue. There was a shed that connected two dormers on the side, and it looked really nice. And the shed can be set back so that
Yeah.
it's not so overwhelming, and then I think the proportion might look nicer, but Niall's not here today, right? That's only more, even as much for your, you know, edification, that there is another design that
When you
might,
say a shed, I'm not really hearing you. When you say
instead of
shed,
doing a dormer in the middle,
Yeah.
if you were to do
like connecting, is that what you're saying?
connecting, and then it goes back, and not what we call a doggy dormer.
Okay.
But it's a study in design, you
Yeah.
know, and then that doesn't have to pop out as much, because that's an open den there, right?
This is just these are.
That's like a
these are
hall.
bedrooms, this is a hallway.
Right.
Bring in a little bit of light, and it's gonna be like a little bit of just a bench these are gonna be the kids' bedrooms that we wanted
Right.
to open up a little more light. I do understand that it's hard to look at the two photos and say, oh, we didn't really change it much, but if you look at the measurements, he did take it down by, half a foot.
Yeah, we see that.
I know, there's an outline. You can see, in that drawing, there's shown in a dashed line is the previous dormer design.
Yeah.
So, we have that in front of us, so I can see, it's just, I was thinking
Oh,
a
here,
reduction
sorry.
in scale of,
Sorry, I was in the wrong one. This is the one
The
that's
taller
the
one.
original.
No, we-
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no,
This is
no.
the new one.
We got it.
no, I
Yeah, we're looking at
understand.
it right here.
Okay, okay. Is there a specific, square footage or foot, so this is now 9 feet, 6 inches by 8 feet, 4 inches. Is there a specific measurement we should be aiming for then if this isn't?
I think the last time that your architect was here, we had
It's
We had
not
made
even-
some suggestions, and I don't know that he studied them.
Yeah, we don't have this, this is what we looked
This
at
is
last
literally
time.
exactly what we looked at on screen the last time we were here,
Oh.
the last time the architect was here. The exact same, he presented this the same day. We had asked him to present it in drawing form, and then also to maybe look at the roof lines and look at a different configuration. A shed roof was one of the suggestions.
Oh, okay, I don't remember that.
I
thought it
think
was
the
I thought
issue-
the suggestion was just to go from here to just kind of tighten it up a little bit, which is what I thought you did here. Because you could see where you're,
It
it's
wa-
what it was, and you tightened it up. but-
It was, but as Mike said, it wasn't enough from a scale standpoint of the overall house, because it still isn't proportional to the rest of the,
The problem is that the top looks really top-heavy
Right.
compared to the bottom, and if there's some way to lighten that, especially that middle dormer, the two end dormers we understand are in bedrooms, but perhaps something can be done with that middle dormer in terms of design. I think you will be happy living with that too.
Okay. I'm just throwing out an idea, what if that middle dormer was in proportion to the other two? Would that kind of be what you're thinking, or? Because the middle dormer is slightly larger than the other two. Again, just trying to be specific here on what he should do next.
That's certainly not gonna hurt, but I don't know if that's enough to solve the problem. I don't know.
Okay, so what should I do next then? I guess I'm relying on, over my skis here. Should ask Niall to draw another version of this and then.
He does really nice stuff. I'm sure he can come up with, a maybe slightly lighter design.
Okay, thank you.
Any neighbors? No. Okay, motion to continue this application to the next meeting, for the second. Brandon seconds. Unanimous. 111 Bel Air Drive. No one here from Bel Air. Do we have drawings in our packet for that?
We can take that
Oh,
away.
that's-
It's the third time that they didn't show up.
Okay. Do we need to do that formally? Or,
Yeah, deny it, I guess. Or we could give them one more.
we'll give them another,
Okay.
if they're not at the next hearing, we'll deny them and they can
Okay.
file a new application if and when they want to do the work. So, motion to continue 111 Bel Air Drive to the next meeting. EIR seconds. Unanimous. 173 Ashford Avenue.
Hello, my name is Mrs. Ahrb. I was there last, couple weeks ago, and the feedback was that you wanted the sky exposure for the front elevation by the diagram, and I prepared and submitted it. But it wasn't quite clear if you literally wanted the front elevation, so I also have the front elevation drawings with the sky exposure on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that elevation drawing.
we have that
I
no
had-
on one
I
sheet.
No, she
Oh.
has,
No, I just brought it,
You
I
have
have 11 copies.
Okay, so why don't you?
May I just
Oh,
distribute?
Yeah, you
sure.
can
No,
just
I'll
hand it to
handle
Paul
it.
and he'll pass
All
it.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I- As I suspected, this neighborhood has, most of the houses probably do not meet the sky exposure plane. And it's an existing condition. It seems that there is a significant portion of this house that doesn't comply to that regulation that, sort of fairly new. And I see the small dormer that is required for access to the attic to be acceptable, given the fact that there's a very large part of this house not within the sky exposure plane, and it's really the only logistical way to get up there in a code compliant stair. So I'm okay with this sky exposure plane, sort of further exacerbation of sky exposure plane because it's such a small element.
I agree.
fine.
Okay,
I
great.
thought you were voting, sorry.
I think that
I'm fine.
if we looked at the rest of the house, and I thought we were pretty happy with that at the last meeting, so I'd like to make a motion to approve this application as submitted. Do I have a second? Yeah, your seconds? It's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming back.
Good luck.
Would you like these,
You want
all
the
these
copies back?
drawings, copies back?
Okay.
Thanks for doing this elevation. Nice drawing.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think we keep one for the building department, and
Okay.
we'll add that to the set.
Do you
Um,
need this?
Yeah, Paul has
Paul
one,
has
so we'll
one.
keep his.
There we go.
Okay, so no more?
No, that's enough,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
88 Ashford Avenue. That was the sign for the,
Sports therapy.
Sports medicine.
Oh,
So I just want to point out a couple of things. Number one, this is for the sign at 88 Ashford. Firstly, the sign is in place in the windows.
It
I
was
noticed.
there before, yeah,
Um,
right.
And second, there is what appears to be a place for signs to go in that building. Is there some issue with that?
That was approved a long time ago, when it got a variance, because you're not allowed to have a freestanding sign in that zone.
Yeah,
So now that they removed the sign, they're not allowed to, they would have to go for a new variance for that sign,
okay.
to use that.
It seems to me that it's the best place to put signage for that business, or businesses that are in that building. So we're gonna urge them to do that.
Okay.
If that applicant is watching us on television.
Yeah, no, those signs, they're gonna come down. They were up before,
Okay,
and they applied for it.
well, let's continue this to the next meeting then. Do I have a motion to continue this to next? Your seconds, unanimous, okay. 310 Palisade Street, please.
Okay, good evening, Robert Shore, landscape architect for the project. Here at the board, you know, show the board, Lincoln Street, I apologize. The new wall gets pushed back approximately 12 to 14 feet. There's a 4-foot high retaining wall. We're also looking to do a fireplace structure to fit to that, and then an pergola over the terrace, the larger part of the terrace. Material selection, originally we were thinking of going with a stone look. I was pushing trying to do stucco because it matches the existing residence. These plans show stone on them, but they are indeed wanting to do a stucco like this wall, with a blue stone cap. So that will be changed in these plans. So we're gonna do stucco wall, blue stone cap. The pergola structure would be made cedar, not painted, just left to patina out, which is actually an issue. Material selections for the terrace itself.
Yeah, but I. Okay, so you, is there here's our section, so your retaining wall detail is only changing in that the 3-inch stone veneer is going to become stucco in this section drawing, and other than that,
Other than that, the layout, the plan itself is not changing, yes. The stone will be taken off, and we're going to stucco it, and still have a blue stone cap, 2-inch blue stone cap on it, with stucco to match the residence.
well, so this section where the stone is just going to stucco.
So part of the application, I think, is to make some photos of the existing residence. It's kind of a stucco house.
Yeah.
Push the-
Yeah, no, I think I think it makes perfect sense. It seems to me like it would work either way. I wanted to have a set for the building department with whatever your final selection is and our approval of that. And I don't know if there are any comments about this.
No, it's
house.
fine.
No, it looks great.
You noticed everybody?
Pardon?
And the 260 Palisade. I don't know if that's within the 200 foot, but it's on. Can I get a notice for it?
Do you have a record of notices?
We
for this
do,
project?
we have the mailing, I should have the mailing.
Okay.
Well,
Well, as long as you have it.
It
we'll-
works,
we'll-
it looks
yeah.
nice. so.
You're-
I don't need a notice, but
You're on 260, you didn't get a notice?
260 Palisade is my address. So,
Street or?
You might have. just-
Avenue, this is Avenue.
You might have just been right outside.
Your street,
Outside,
right?
yeah.
Feet.
No, it says Avenue.
Palisades, yeah.
Street or Ave?
Avenue.
Avenue. Street had very small.
They're a lot smaller.
How many feet, 200?
Is that what
Something
in
like
10
that. 200
houses?
from the center?
200-foot radius.
You
may be outside of it.
I might be.
I don't have the mailing list.
It's.
It's all right, I'll stop by, it's all
I
good.
can resubmit them. I know there was like 30 people.
Nah, I walk by all the time, so it's no big deal. I'll just.
Are there any neighbors? No? Any other comments? No? All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve this with the change of the 3-inch stone veneer to a stucco to match the stucco on the existing house. Do I have a second? Any seconds? Okay, thank you. 35 Hamilton Street, please.
I got an email for that one right before the meeting. They weren't going to be able to make it.
Okay.
If they could continue to the next meeting.
Sure. This is the sign that, Yeah, that's what a great name.
Yeah.
My God.
See if we can make soup for liquid.
It's just,
I
it's sort of
don't
kind of
need it.
brilliance here of the sign. Does anyone have any comments on the Lash Lounge?
No.
Anyone here for the Lash Lounge? No? It's just, I'm gonna take a guess and say, judging from the scale of in this photo, it's compliant.
Yes.
We're also looking at
That's 37 Hamilton you're looking at right now?
the 35?
35, okay.
35 Hamilton, yeah.
They just said they weren't going to come, or they weren't going to be?
They weren't gonna be able to make it.
But they still wanted to approve?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so you want
So-
to approve it?
I'd like to just approve it. I think it's, I don't think it's a controversial sign, so.
Then yeah, that's fine. It meets all our criteria.
If there are no comments and no neighbors, I'd like to make a motion to approve this as submitted. Do I have a second? Yeah, your seconds. Unanimous. Okay, excellent. 71 Broadway.
On behalf of the school. We need a digital up here?
No, I don't think so.
So, I gave you pretty much, everything you need. The papers was about half a mile down, south of here on Broadway, about 11-acre campus. And they came to us expressing a need for, more of a security presence in the middle of their, campus, in the form of booth. So, simply, connected with a booth manufacturing company, parked it, worked with them, and came up with what you've got in front of you. Because you took all the full-scale plans and laid them out, all three of them would be about the size of the booth. So, it's up to,
It says that the panels color to match architect samples, your sample.
yeah, I mean, the booth is primarily gonna be white.
What?
It's white to match the paper that is.
No, it's because it's called for the sample in the drawing.
Yeah, now I brought red because, just to show that really the intent is not to make it like fire engine red. The intent is really to,
That's the roof, that's going to be red?
yeah, so it's gonna be kind of a buff. I brought two samples, is kind of where I was going with it. Yeah, to try and, I don't wanna really conflicting with what's there, I wanna compete with what's there, nice, castle building, at the end of the, vista. And just kind of a colonial, white building with a nondescript roof in the middle. But they did want to have some presence, and, even to the extent that he wanted us to develop those finials on the roof to kind of give it a little bit of, something beyond just a roof.
Yeah, I think it's a nice addition, and if you're asking preference, the darker one seems to have a little more presence, might sort of, the other one's a little fleshy,
Yeah.
leans towards it. But otherwise, I think
Oh, I see, that's the island that's existing.
that's what's there, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
broken
Sounds lovely.
arm, control arm.
Right. So they really wanted to have more of a, you called it intimidating, but I said imposing. He said, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
No,
And it
I-
gives the opportunity to come in and if they're in the wrong place, they can turn around, put it, come right back out again. So that's why we, places where they're essentially
Steve, I would have liked to have given you a really hard time, because I know you did that to many other people who stood in your position for many years, but unfortunately, this is pretty straightforward and nicely done. Maybe you can come, yeah, and you can get back what you gave. But I think we're all in agreement, pretty straightforward. Motion, I'd like to make a motion to approve this as submitted. Do I have a second? Yeah, your seconds, we're unanimous. Okay, thanks. Let's see, last item on the agenda. Is there?
This was not on, one more do.
Oh, there's one,
That's the-
yeah, 1 Myrtle Avenue, please. Do we have?
Yeah, that's the one that was.
Mr. Steinschneider, would you be willing to, we have a sign at the end of this meeting. And I'd like to take care of that sign because I have a feeling we may end up having a bit of a conversation today. So, yeah. So let's look at 37 Hamilton Street briefly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Rivera. I'm here representing 37 Hamilton, and I've also brought with me samples of what the sign material is going to look like. Really basic router cut letters. It's almost to scale, not quite, but good representation of what it's going to look like. Pretty lightweight composite.
I just have one question. The color looks like it's not gonna stand out against the color of the brick. You really want that color?
It does look that way, but I can tell you that I did not choose that color. And there were many revisions to it with real samples with the science company. And it
Wow,
works.
look at that.
It works enough. I mean, we'd like to stucco that space, but that didn't
Oh.
work out. And it was just too, it would be too cumbersome to stucco that, but
You could paint it.
we could, we just didn't, we didn't want to get too involved with that process for the sake of getting the doors open and getting signage up. And there may be a revision to it down the line
Okay.
with the design team.
I think otherwise it looks good. We're also approving the awning. Just a black awning, no signage on the awning. Okay.
Pretty
Straightforward to me. Yep. Any comments? No? To make a motion to approve this as submitted, do I have a second? All seconds?
Thank you.
Unanimous? Okay, thank you.
Don't forget your
Don't forget your
samples.
samples here.
Don't forget your samples.
Yes,
Okay, thank you for accommodating our request. 1 Myrtle Avenue.
Pat Steinschneider from Gotham Design and Community Development, here representing the Ahrb and Myrtle. They have a wonderful house on a great piece of property, and they would very much like to have a three-car garage and au pair quarters. This photo may want to maybe remember, the addition we're proposing is to the side here, and it carries these lines straight across and continues them to create more of a courtyard in the front. Which I can kind of show you in a little bit more detail. That's right, so some photos. So this is walking up the hill from the street. What you would say is the front of the house facing Myrtle. This is that side again. This is where we're going to be extending this form here. The first floor, we're not actually doing what this, but we're keeping this as a walk-through that's about 12 feet wide from this wall to the wall of the garage, but it's a completely heated, occupied space above. It's a connected structure. It's not an accessory structure. This is their existing garage, which is pretty difficult to use, and they could make use of the space in the basement, I think, in a better way. This is the back of the house. You get this kind of sense of these long forms here connected with these other fairly sloped, it's lots of trees. We're only taking down, I think, 4 trees on the property to do this. When we looked, one of the concerns that the village had, because we've already been through the planning board, was that we did have some steep sloped areas, so we analyzed the area that we're building in. This is a 1,500 square foot rectangle, and within that, the slopes are significantly less than 35%, which is the threshold where the village says we'd rather you find a different way to build. And just so that you have a history of it a little bit, we did look at 4 different locations for this addition. We looked at coming off this side and coming in this way to it. We looked at a freestanding structure here and a freestanding structure over here. This was the one that made the most sense. One of the things being that the building inspector determined that we're gonna have no pairs quarters. We really couldn't do that in an accessory structure. So we had to make this be a connected structure, and of the 2 choices of either building it here or here, we felt this is kind of the least used piece of the property, the best place to put that addition. And one of the things we're doing with this area is we're proposing a retaining wall here that'll give them a much larger play area off of the house behind this row of trees. We are going to try to take this row of trees that are there fairly good size and move them down to screen that and continue that, give them privacy up in this. They're big trees, but we've had an arborist take a look at it, and he's got some enthusiasm for being able to do that. This is just showing that in more detail. This showing it in even more detail. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, pause there for,
Yeah.
yeah.
So here's the front porch. This is that.
So the sort of front elevation is that we started the presentation with is that elevation, which doesn't actually face the street in any way. It faces, what's the immediately adjacent? There's just another neighbor?
There's a
It does face the
series of
street?
flag lots over here that come up to 3 houses that are built up above this fairly significantly.
Yeah, the driveway is,
The driveway's here.
so, the extension.
Yeah, I see it. So there's, one,
So
two,
you see-
that's strange, 3 flag lots like that.
Yeah, yeah,
That area up there is very interesting.
this is the.
Yeah, no, what I meant was, like, can you see this front?
From
It's-
Washington
Yeah, I mean, you
Avenue.
can kind of get a view
You
here.
can-
Yeah, okay, all right, I'm just,
Besides, this is a street too. This comes to, it's like
Yeah.
a driveway. This one here.
it's a driveway.
Then, yeah, well, it's a driveway to this house.
Yeah, it's a driveway that serves 3 houses. And then there's another driveway right next to it that used to serve one of the probably greatest houses in Dobbs Ferry, Ron DeRusso's house. It's absolutely phenomenal. And it was the driveway for this big estate, and somebody in 59 subdivided all around it to build houses that are hard to believe that you would look at the existing house and you'd say, this is what we want to build across the street, but that's what happened.
Well, wait, this was the driveway to the big house, the
Not this property, I'm talking about 85, which is.
Yeah, 86 Belden, right? Was it? That was the driveway?
No, well, here, this,
Isn't that right here, that driveway?
so right, what you're seeing here, there's one driveway that comes up here
Yes,
that serves this, and this house.
right.
Right.
We actually did the coach house that's for this one. The house is phenomenal.
Oh,
This is 85, and there's a driveway that comes in over here
Right.
that this house, this, and 3 others over here are all served by as well as that house. And right now, what we've done is we've asked for a subdivision of that property. We've gone to the zoning board, before the planning board on it, so that, quite honestly, so that he can sell the lot off and get some of the equity out of the house, so that he can sell the house for a price that the market will bear. You're familiar with Mr. DeRusso, he's doing the house right now on Livingston Avenue. They kind of, if, in my world, heroic, taking a 5-family and converting it back to a single family with just phenomenal work and detail.
It's amazing. I've been inside.
Yeah, it's quite.
Very nicely done.
Yeah, it really is. And it's kind of an interesting twist. You know, we look at things these days and we think everybody's gonna bring things up more, and when you see somebody go back and restore an old house like that and really bring it back, it's quite cool. So he's selling this
room gonna become really dark?
Right now, it's not very light, because you're down in a hole.
But it's open now, and you're gonna block it.
It's open, but you're not getting a lot of light in that room, and, the way this will work is it'll be an interesting, different feel. The house has great rooms with lots and lots of light in them, and they're using this as like a television room. They're involved in the entertainment industry, so this is like a screening room for things, so the way they look at it, they preferred to not lose the windows by having this built up against it.
Oh,
So
of course.
We pulled it
No, I
off.
like the idea of the courtyard, but
Right.
still.
So then the second floor, this is an existing bedroom, hallway that has a little set of stairs that goes onto the landing of the first floor and second floor. We're adding a bedroom here, a little hallway that leads across the stairs, and then this is the repairs suite.
Suite, just to understand, the upper quarters is a 3-bedroom.
No, the au pair's quarters have one bedroom.
How about the other two on the side?
This bedroom will be for the house,
But how do you
as,
get from,
as does.
the only way to get to from the house is through the stairs, correct?
No, the
No,
other,
no, you
the
can,
other
you
room.
can, in other words, if you're coming from the first floor, going to the stairs, quarters, you come up the stairs, you open this
Oh, there's a
door,
stair here.
you walk through here, and then you come this hallway over to it, or you come out and you come up here, but
All I'm asking is how is this not a two-family house?
it doesn't have a kitchen.
I see a kitchen.
No, you see counters, a refrigerator, and a sink. It doesn't have a stove.
Uh-huh.
We've reviewed that with Mr. Manley, and this is what he instructed us effectively, that this is what would be acceptable.
There's no range of cooktops, so it's allowed.
And some of us believe we should have a village that allows that, but right now we don't. So what this is, and it really is an au pair's quarters. The au pair, I will acknowledge right now, is her mom. And I think the idea is that her mom will live there for, quite some time, and mom takes care of their baby, which they dote on wonderfully, and I anticipate that being evidence of future issues. So I think that their plan is to have a setup that they can have in-house help most of the time with their kids. I never got to have that, but it sounds wonderful. So there's one bedroom, bathroom that's for this suite. And then this, what I anticipate happening is this becomes a room that's kind of a swing room between the regular part of the house and the au pairs. So this would be a place where maybe, if the mom was taking care of the baby, the grandmom of the babies, taking care of the baby, they might be in this area part during the day. It's kind of like a baby's playroom now. So, this all makes a lot of sense.
And that doesn't join with the house?
Where's the connection
This all
between,
joins with the house.
where?
This stairs is the landing.
Ah, I see, there's a little step there, I
Right.
see, okay,
So
all
what
right,
happens right
understood.
now to get to this room, you come
Oh,
up
I
the
see.
stairs
Yeah,
Yeah.
and walk in here. And now what you'll be able to do is walk through that hallway and get to this. So it's all connected
Understood,
space. And it's all connected living space. Actually, I was trying to remember why I included this, because we've broken all these out individually. This is the closest property line
Second floor, huh?
that is to what we're building, so this gives you an idea of the sky exposure plan. Doing the sky exposure plan for a property line that's way over here, which would be.
Yeah, we
great.
get it, we're not gonna have that issue.
Good. And this is, on the elevation, this is the front entrance. This is the garage, doing that on the end, as I said, carrying the roof lines that exist now over to that. So that's this line coming across. Again, the way, on the other side of the house, we've got that long sloping piece interrupted by these steeper gables. We pick that up and use that in composition with the
So say that again, the cut line is what?
The cut line right here is to the existing family room.
Yeah, and we're seeing the new structure beyond.
Right. So it shows, if you will, the west elevation. You know, this, at this point, we've shown 4 elevations of the garage. This being that west elevation of the garage with this section enclosed on it.
Yes, yes.
And all the materials are matching existing in material, detail, and color, and everything. So it'll all be somewhat seamless.
So let's start with big picture and then we'll kind of narrow. Sorry, your presentation is completed?
I was planning to say, but
Great, okay.
I anticipated doing it.
So I would like, I think this is, it's an interesting project, for a number of reasons. It's a great existing house, great property, and I think it can, this size property and this kind of house can bear an addition of this square footage. I think that, you know, the existing house itself is already complicated, and it is that way for a couple of reasons. One, it's part of the style of the architecture, but there's also, it seems to me, a number of small things that have been added or moved around over time.
Maybe, or maybe we're.
Can you,
built just
can you
that
go to the
far.
photos of the existing?
Oh, yeah, would you, yeah. It could be, it's not clear. To me, it seems a little overly, I would imagine that a house like this would be slightly different from, as an original design. Like, there's a few things that don't quite line up with with the Platonic style of this house, but.
Well, for example, we actually look for evidence that this would have been an addition, because it doesn't meet this in any,
Yeah.
like, resolved way, but all indications are this was original to the house.
But let me, the reason I bring that up is because if you're going into a sizable addition like
You
this,
do the front house, the front,
yeah,
another slide.
The other side?
That one, yeah.
great. You know, there's a few things that come to mind. The first is that there may be ways to kind of simplify the overall ensemble, and I'm not sure what those are yet, because there's a lot here and a lot to absorb and a lot to think about and talk about. And so my first impression is that, well, you know, the program is a au pair and a large garage for a large house, okay? Reasonable program. I will not get into the question of the two-family thing now. If Mr. Manley, if the building department has looked at it and this is their determination, you know, we can talk about that with them separate, outside of here, if we have issue with that. But I think the bigger question is how to do one of two things. Either bring this new addition in line in a very sensible way with what's happening with the house, or treat it like an addition, right? Like something that came after the fact. And it seems like you have chosen the former for, you know, reasons, you know, whatever. Both are legitimate ways to approach it. And I guess my one concern is that in doing so, I see a continuation of not a complexity of the project, but just a complicated form making that's kind of mimicking a lot of complicated forms in the house. And I say this because I wonder if there are studies or there's things you've been thinking about that help maybe simplify this addition a little bit so that the sort of resulting ensemble is not overbearing in its number of peek-throughs and sort of number of small volumes that are, you know, sort of tacked on and sort of make their way around the house. So I don't know what the right answer is yet. I'm putting the question out for us to start to talk about.
The only, not the only, so the comment I have is maybe along the lines of what Michael mentioned, and the reason is I asked you to put that slide on is because, for some reason, when you look at the drawing, the addition becomes more important than the existing house, when the existing house is not a small house.
Right.
So-
And I think the reality is this addition following that line becomes a backdrop.
Right,
so that you don't overpower the front.
before coming to this, the meeting, I drove by the house to understand it, and I was surprised on the size of the house compared to the addition. So I will assume that there is a problem of scale on the addition and how it relates to the existing house. I'm not saying that what you did is wrong. I'm just saying that I need to digest it.
Sure.
And,
This is a house that warrants more than one meeting, so I'm not, I think tonight's gonna cover
yeah,
it.
and I would.
Yeah, I
like-
appreciate that, because also comes on the heel, a lot of us were away,
Sure.
break, and so I haven't had a chance to really walk over there and take a close
I
look,
mean, this
which I'd like to do.
might be one that makes sense to, have a sidewalk and go over, because the couple of things that came up as we were working on this, first, that the clients, when they bought this house because they really loved this house. And, we started saying, well, exactly, there's two different ways we can approach this. One is to break from that and do something that's much more open and all this. They actually were saying, how would this house have been built if it had a three-car garage? So the idea was integrate whatever it is you choose to do so that it would be seamless and not something that articulates itself.
But the conundrum there is that you're gonna get into addressing the main house. In order to do that, I think in order to do that properly, and this is where I was sort of, maybe where I was starting to lead with this, is that if you were to design this
Mhm.
with this program plus the new program together, you may take a different approach. You may have some more monumental forms on the main house and, sort of, I'm not asking you to
Right.
tear the roof off of the main house. I'm just saying,
It's good.
the alternative is to simplify the addition, right? In a way, or
Well, that's-
bring the scale, maybe the roof of the addition isn't the same height, and there are some of these, I don't know,
Well,
I don't know what the
how
right,
It's actually
It's higher.
taller,
it's higher, okay.
it's higher, look,
And
Yeah.
one of
that's,
the things we
that's the
didn't,
problem.
That's,
That it's too massive. The addition is too massive for the house. The house is tall,
Right.
and you're making your addition even taller.
yeah,
The
but.
other problem that I personally have is that.
It might
Sorry.
be misleading because of the slope. That's why.
Yeah, that's
it's-
because look at the
it's-
back, rear
The
elevation.
back is one story.
No, I understand,
So
because
from the
that's the
rear,
same,
you wanna
that's
walk
the-
right out to the.
that's the same case with the existing house on the
Yeah.
back of
Yeah.
this.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I tell that
But-
there is a lot of
But
issues of
this
scale
is the
that.
view
needs to be
that
done.
you're gonna see when someone comes up to the house.
you're
Well,
gonna
I'm not
see-
done yet. Well, I have another problem, or at least a question,
Yeah.
is I think that the addition is so massive, it feels like it's crashing into that side of the house. And the addition dwarfs, and that house by no means is,
Yeah, I
it's a
agree.
majestic house, it's a handsome house, and the addition doesn't do justice to what that house wants. I think that if this is an au pair suite, it definitely wants to pay homage to the house and not dominate the house, which is what this addition feels like to me.
Yeah, I don't think it does that.
There is a risk of viewing this house as a multifamily houses instead of a two, per quarters. All I'm saying is because your selection of the two dormers and a dormer and a separate entrance,
No, it's possible to make it smaller.
it's a 55 feet proposed, addition. So it's, look at the drawings, you see?
Yeah.
It kind of,
Why
if you
does
see
it
what
want
you
to
see
be that
now,
But you
clearly the
never-
addition,
You never can see this.
well,
You can never see.
that's why I gave you the benefit of the doubt, and
Right,
says I
that's
have
why
to
you
go
need to
until you
decide.
decide.
Because what really happens is this retaining wall comes around, this becomes a courtyard. And if you look at a lot of the houses that we've worked on, I don't know, outside of Philadelphia, on the main line, this is how that was resolved. What you did is, yes, if you will, the service wing might be very large, but what it did is it was the backdrop behind the courtyard with this part of the house sticking out in front. From Washington and from have any of that quirk, add something else to this, but to take the existing roof lines and continue them much the way the west facade does, so that you have this line that kind of comes across and connects between these gables, and the gables are relatively small. I mean, this is a two-window gable. It's very tight, very tall.
So if that's the
But that-
case, why is that roof higher than this roof? Because it should be in proportion, all of them.
Well, all we're doing is we're getting from the front to the back.
Yeah, but this is one, going back to the scale. Look at the scale of the middle dormer, or
Yeah.
the two dormers. It's
Correct.
almost the size of the front of the house.
This ridge and this ridge are almost the
But
same.
you see what I'm saying? There is a probably it's a problem of the drawing. The drawing is communicating something that is not,
No, I'm not carrying that. So
the,
what's
your
the
draw,
drawing?
your drawing, because if you put all the attention on the drawing, on the addition, and the left side of the existing house is lighter,
Right.
it kind of eats it. And not only in scale, if you look at the scale, the proportions of the middle dormer, just put the dormer like on the two dormers on the right, right?
These two.
These
Yeah.
two, each one of them is, if you put it
As
next to
big
the
or
front,
taller.
it's kind of in scale, almost the same scale of the front of the house. When the front of the house,
This one is.
there has to be some
nicest part of the house.
hierarchy in terms of what's the main house and what's the upper quarters, or the garage.
And it's not like
This is
addition
the
is
most
very
dominant
nice.
gable.
But
These are smaller.
in the drawing is misleading. It might be that
They,
if you
no,
go
they,
there.
yeah, they are smaller. I don't disagree. I mean, we're not arguing that. We can see that they're smaller. I think and I see a little bit of it. There's two issues. The first is that there's a third window, and then this, and those two dormers to the right, the third window, and then there's the additional window above. And while it is smaller,
This is a larger scale element.
yeah, it's a sort of, there's just more, and I know that if we were to overlay them, the left side is larger, but not by that much, but also it's the extra windows, the windows are actually taller, there's a third one, there's the fourth window above, so there's all this attention on the garage, because essentially that's what we're building a garage structure with living quarters above. And so I guess that is maybe part of what's rubbing us the wrong way, is that if you're gonna add a garage to a stately, well-done old house, it shouldn't appear larger
What if
or
they-
more significant, or, I mean, we're not asking you to do, we'd like the idea that you're matching the details and the materials and the window types and,
efficient.
yeah, I mean, all those things, those are all great, those are the right direction, we're 100% behind that. I guess the question is, could you bring those dormers down in scale? Can you bring the roof down in scale somewhat, so that, and I understand what you're saying about the courtyard component, how a significant part of that is gonna be concealed. And I don't know, I mean, I think it's worth us exploring. I also think EIR has a point, which is that if you don't draw the whole house to the same degree of detail, it's very hard for us to analyze it, right? This is reading much stronger, particularly on the
You
page.
understand why I didn't do that, right? So you can tell what's.
No, I know, just give us a, a red line or, put something
Okay.
above, and so it identifies what's new versus
Or
old.
perhaps do something where you can see this 3D.
Even better if if I know you often do 3D models,
Yeah.
and you bring, if you built one and you want to bring that here for us,
That might help,
that would be extremely helpful.
yeah. I mean, these-
Particularly if it shows the cut in the landscape and how that issue
How
is
this is
affecting the
buried in.
perspective of this.
Yeah, I mean, bringing these down would not compromise the space at all. You'd have the exact same footprint, so that's something that would be viable to do. I mean, I just intrinsically figured, well, if this is coming across, I would normally always break my dormers up so that I've got the eaves of those defined, so not lost, down in the massing, but
Narrow,
that's something that.
maybe narrow them down a little bit, and that would bring the scale down?
They could get narrower.
I mean, I don't know what the plan is doing.
I'm trying to keep these spaces though small enough, that these are more than these. So that if you blocked off all of this and looked at
Seems
this.
like you could go either way. I mean,
See the balance of
Doesn't matter.
dimensions that we're trying for.
And not
Yeah,
only
I mean,
that,
you've
there's
got
not
room to
that
play,
much
that
room.
room, the bedroom, kitchen,
You know, This is huge.
living room, whatever, whatever. I think there's room, there's definitely room to play there in how that room pans out. So,
What about bringing the new window treatment to the newer gables to the original gable to the left? Would that be, just to create some continuity?
I don't know that they're looking for more.
So good, we're making it smaller, that should save them some money.
I will try.
Yeah, we're gonna save you on some slate roof.
We've shown ways of making the space over the garage be a smaller space. What really that they like is this form that it continues to make. The fact that this is like a foot taller than that ridge is just the geometry of making that work. I think if you're out here at the site, these are gonna feel like they're similar. I mean, this elevation kind of shows that, I mean, this is accurate to that. This just shows you that that line is more than this line. The reality is these all kind of fit together. It's not like it's, one thing is dominating the other. And the main house, just because it doesn't have the roof coming across breaking it, has the dominance in the courtyard.
Correct, but again, the front of the house, which is very dominant from the street, it's a, you know, you see it and you,
Well, this,
yeah.
Right.
All I'm saying is, when you look at it from the driveway, it's impressive. It's very unique.
and that won't be affected.
And this is about 30 feet from the top, you know, whatever it is, from the ground to the top of the ridge. Your addition is also 30 feet, so it's also massive.
Right.
So that's my concern.
That might be a reason to bring these down in scale. As, you know, Deputy was saying, if these were narrower, that would just make them smaller by
I mean, they
themselves.
only
But,
pop
you know,
out about a
now's the
foot.
time to make the broad-based suggestions for, you know, some revisiting some elements. So if you have some, you know, strong opinions about how that gets achieved, I think now is the time to talk about it before Patty does revisions that aren't what we were thinking
Yeah.
about.
Correct.
That's my-
You know,
my
so
concern.
let's just get in,
The
don't-
first thing I want to say
It
is
should
that
be
the
extra clear.
scheme or the L configuration, that works fine. I have no issue with that. The three-car garage setback on the back, it works. It's gonna turn out to be like a nice upper quarters, three-car garage and almost a five-car garage property, which is okay.
Yeah.
It's whatever it is, it is. What I like to revisit or understand better is, in terms of hierarchy, what's the main house and what's the addition. The addition cannot overpower the front of the house. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and in terms of ideas of how I think we would approach that to break the scale, the apparent scale of this down, not with more pieces, but with the pieces that we have smaller. So if this was less wide, more, you know, they really do like the view from there, so they're looking for a lot of glass. They also have decent windows out the back, so it's not everything has to be the ocean view. So, you know, we can definitely look at that, and I think that would make a big difference in this. The idea of it looking like it's multifamily, I think the way you avoid that is you don't have this feel like it's dormitories. So you can't, you know, the risk here would be of having too much of
I love the courtyard opening. I'm looking at this, and it's too bad that you couldn't push the addition back because of the hill, you know, that would have been much nicer, so it doesn't feel like it's crashing into the house. So having said that, if we accept that, I have another question to ask you. Where you have the door going in and the stairs going up, there's no reason for that tall roof to continue across there, right?
This one?
And including over the opening. Perhaps if you could mitigate the big roof somehow. Can you look at that?
I can
It
look,
might,
in other
it
words,
might
have-
make that
have-
connector a little more, you know, in
So-
proportion.
So the idea would be that this, kind of from there to here would be.
The big roof.
that,
And then the
this
connector has a more linear
would come
line to
down.
it.
Yeah, I'm
If-
not,
I don't know if that's gonna work, you know.
at the moment, I don't know how we would do it.
You'd have to
but
study it.
I think, you know, I'm sure
It's a
there's
study.
some way. It might be just having, more of that lower pitch, because right now what we do on the back, I mean, it's kind of a quirky way to do it. We have that coming down.
See, that's what I'm saying, you know, so I think that you can mitigate that big, massive roof.
Cutting that here.
I
and
don't know
doing
where
something
and
different with
how you,
this.
yeah, make it a little more linear looking.
Right. To make
It'll have a
that-
little more tension to it then.
Right, because that opens up your space between this mass and that.
It won't look that massive then.
Right, that's a cool idea. That makes sense. That should work.
On its own, actually, it's very attractive.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. Anytime we ready to make a motion that we approve, I'm just teasing, don't get mad at me.
I'm
Go
just-
back to the drawing board, Patty.
The problem is the guest closeness. When they have breakfast.
Any thoughts that you have different from anything?
No, I like the existing house, so
Yeah,
it's a very big structure being built onto it. So, it will resemble the main structure, even with the grade changes in the courtyard feel. It will feel like the front entrance and the main part of the house, even with a garage below it, because of how it's being treated now from an elevation standpoint with the windows and everything that's there. So I think if you bring that down in scale, I agree with Dipti that maybe the connector maybe bringing that down to make it look a little bit softer in the middle, so it's almost like two taller portions with a smaller middle would help from a proportion standpoint. So I mean, I've just been nodding my head because I'm in agreement with a lot of what's being said. It's just a matter of, you know.
yeah.
And I agree, it does look really, on its own, it is a nice structure. It's just, it's hard next to a, would you call it a handsome house,
I did.
right?
It is.
So it is, with a lot of character.
You can't call it pretty because it's
Right.
expensive.
And it's character that you can see from Myrtle, right? I mean, even some of the treatments that you were talking about in terms of it being an addition with the existing garage and what's around there. I mean, I don't know if there's other elements that could pay homage, right, from the existing. That's a little, you know, they have some architectural detailing on some of those smaller structure or portions that you maybe could pay homage to on the addition. I don't know, but
I think the problem with
to tie it together.
with this is the program, because, you know, when you do what you call a carriage house, the top floor is much smaller than what the garage is, and it could be a very pretty carriage house. In this instance, it's the opposite. The top floor actually is far more dominant than the garage is, and that's where it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
And usually the servants' quarters are usually not as nicer than
Right.
Well, they're
the
not
main
as
house,
big.
right?
Going one step further with that, the whole idea is that is a vaulted space. So you're seeing all of those roof forms.
It's
with
probably gonna be
wood ceilings,
beautiful on
which
the,
you know,
it's gonna be beautiful on the
would be
inside.
amazing.
Almost like their mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's actually really nice.
She better be in shape to go up and down those stairs all the time.
Yeah, well, people live proven, people live in houses with stairs live longer. So Paul, how do you disagree? Tell me how you think. I think this should be a modern glass box.
Yes. No, no.
What do you-
No, I think I think it's a good looking addition, but, I think, I would like to drive by, maybe even walk by.
Does it make sense
To
to have
get
a
a s-
sidewalk for it?
What's that?
Yeah, let's do
To
it.
have a sidewalk where you, at a time when it's convenient for you guys.
Let's
We go out there, we walk around, and we get to really see. Because the important thing for me in this is that the courtyard reads as a courtyard. That you actually come up, you feel like you've come up this hill, you come into a relatively flat area, and you feel like you've arrived very clearly that this is the house and this is the garage. I think it'd be hard to not think of it as a garage with 3 garage doors, but we are even trying to soften that with the way we set the garage doors back in, with the columns in front and the roof overhang, so you don't feel like it's that, you know, it's not all about the car.
What's happening with the old garage? Is the garage
We're not
door
sure.
still there?
I think
It's gonna remain?
their focus right now is getting this. My guess of what makes sense in the old garage is that becomes a playroom for, I mean, right now, I think their daughter is 7 months,
Mhm.
so she's not quite yet running around with teenage friends. But at some point, I mean, this is a commitment that they've made to a house that they're gonna be in for a long time. So, you know, their thoughts are how this house would work for their kids and all. And I can imagine that being just a great space to be in when you're, 14, 15 years old. And, your parents don't want to know you're doing any more than you want them to know what you're doing. So it's, one of those kinds of.
What's the
Yeah,
what's the existing roof material? Just, I didn't.
Shingles.
Regular shingle? Okay.
The other issue you might have, and again, that's, your design thing, is that the existing front door is gonna become puny compared to the courtyard. Isn't that the front door?
The front door that comes in under
From
that
the
porch.
courtyard, yeah.
It's a pretty
It
good
looks-
feel.
Yeah, it looks,
Yeah.
it's gonna look really puny in there now,
I think the
And then it
porch-
crashes into that side, which becomes longer.
Everything's back off of that, so what really happens is that wall reflects you towards that. So I think the linearity of that roof edge, the lower roof, brings you right into that and refocuses you on where that front door is. It's a really nice porch.
You're not gonna know which door to go to, right? You have to like put a sign that says this is the front door,
This is the upper.
right?
Does
They're
it
the
feel
exact
like-
same, they're the exact same size door,
I'll take the job.
but there's 2 separate entrances to the house, right?
The door to the front of the, the front door is bigger than the door that goes this way.
Not according to your drawing, it's not.
Well, it is. I mean, it's by inches perhaps, but it's a more dominant door. The porch is definitely, more accommodating. At the same time, the entrance to the O'Hare is not
You drive, that's what
you know,
it is.
I mean, you're not gonna even see that.
Well, what we're talking is about
Yeah.
the main issues of what we're discussing. There is a
It's
problem
trying to
of
find the balance between something.
in
that
addition
feels
to
like
the
part of
rear.
it, But at the same time, it's not dominant to what you want to be the focus of the house. It shouldn't be that far off from it. The mistake I see often made with something like this is the addition becomes so secondary to the original that it just feels like that's what often will make the house look like.
But
it's
you're not
made.
doing that, right? You're not doing that.
No, I'm not.
I also,
When I worked in Stern's office, there was a lot of focus on how you really do a big house, and the idea was, a big house is not bigger parts of a smaller house, it's breaking it down, having more elements, and having it articulated. This is bigger than this by a little bit, which is bigger than that by a little bit, and you know it just by the scale of the configuration.
I also like the idea, we're talking about coming down in scale on the window treatment for the new gables. I do like the idea of some symmetry between the new gables and the old gable. I know that, that cost comes into it,
Right.
but I think that would be a nice way to
You'd like the
avoid some of
new
that.
windows in the old gable.
What's that?
You'd like the new windows in the old gable.
Well, I think there would be a nice symmetry there if you had, 3 windows all the way to, I'm looking at the south elevation, to the right, and then, on the left as well. Just a thought,
First of all,
So I just about, a little bit about retaining walls. I think that the wall surrounding the courtyard is sort of an inevitability, and I think actually works really nicely in terms of using that landscape to conceal part of the garage. But the other retaining wall, which varies from about 6 or 7 feet tall, seems substantial.
Is the one that's out in front of the house?
Yeah, and I mean, we're presented with this problem from time to time. I mean, Dobbs Ferry is a town with a lot of hills, and people want their flat lawns for whatever reason, tetherball or who knows. And, you know, I just, you're carving out a little area where you can have a flat, you know, sort of Americana-style lawn on a piece of land that is really not conducive to it. And so I question a little bit the sensitivity of a 7-foot wall.
Well, when we're at the site, you see what these.
Sure, I'm happy to keep thinking about it, but I also want you to also, and I want the applicant to think about it as well, because, you know, all other things get worked out, and then you've got a 7-foot retaining wall that you drive up to every day, which can, I don't know.
Right.
It's a risky landscape
Can
move,
you-
and I don't know if it really melds well with the type of site you have, but look, I'm happy to keep looking at it.
Bringing this existing stone wall and then turning into that and having that disappear behind the evergreens. Because this, you can't see through these.
Yeah, but you know what happens with landscape, you know, we go through a lot of projects where somebody proposes something that's not quite right, and with the agreement that landscape is gonna conceal it, and then,
This is existing.
this is the existing row of evergreen, okay, where,
That existing row, but those are like 30-foot high trees with full, you know, they're not white pines, they're full canopy all the way down to the ground. I mean, we've never tried to even walk through
No.
there. So you're not gonna see this wall behind it, it's really so you can have a play area.
yeah, you know, it merits, you know, spend a little time there. So I didn't see them on the drawing, you have all your other trees shown, so, and there's nothing shown there, so I didn't know if that was a design intention.
Yeah, the
Or
only
something else.
landscaping we're showing is moving these 5 trees to here. If that doesn't work, planning for something that carries them around. These 3 trees, we're losing, they're good trees to take down, because of how the size and the way they're leaning towards the house, so. That's part of that, and we're working with the rock outcroppings as they come around to kind of, what this shows as a wall, the reality is, it would really be, you know, the appearance of this little rock outcropping when you look at behind that.
That's almost 7 feet too, right? Bottom of
Right.
wall is to 41.
That goes up
Yeah,
to
but
8 in
that's-
the corner. I mean, that I'm less concerned with, because it's sort of part of a courtyard defined by,
Yeah.
But
It's
coming
also
back
all-
to the wall that Michael was talking about, why couldn't you
This wall.
tier it, right? Wouldn't it look nicer even from where they're playing to tier it?
I don't think so.
Instead of seeing like a wall of 7 feet?
I think so. I find those awkward.
You put a planter there, you know, break it up into 3.5 and 3.5 and
When we get
take
to
two,
this-
two and a
let's
half
look
or
at
3
the
feet
site.
away, you know, and it'll look so much nicer.
This is, the real idea here is that this is all growth against that.
I'm talking from the other side, I know it's for the clients.
here?
Yeah, from the courtyard, from what you're, you know, cutting, where you're cutting, right?
Right, so this is the existing grade, and right now it slopes up to this at a fairly steep, hard to walk up.
Right, and you're cutting that.
I'm not filling
No,
this.
he's filling all this, he's going, so here's 224 right here. He's filling all this,
Oh, right.
all this
And a
area.
lot of it is, we've calculated our cut over here, so part of the goal, the
But
price
this is
we're paying
still
now,
seven-
get rid of dirt. is
I
gonna
see,
be-
even though the
so
evergreens are
taking
gonna
this and
hide
putting
it.
it there, getting rid of it.
Yeah,
Oh, so
he's
that,
filling all that.
he's filling that, right.
Yeah, so
I thought
we're
he was
gonna,
cutting that.
have, you know, this.
North is the top of the
So this
page.
is all filled in.
The west
And then this, right, where this used to do this,
So you
50.
still see.
or west elevation
you're still
section
seeing
kind
And then you
of
have
work better on the drawing.
everything's here, but you know, this, that.
The section.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Then you have to put a fence here.
This, I mean.
No,
this
no,
is
no,
really
Yeah.
nice.
I'm concerned on the right side, on the details of, to be
Beautiful
exact.
stonework and dry stone.
No, no, no,
That's a great deal.
for the sake of drawing.
This here,
Yeah, I just don't understand what's happening there.
this you're seeing beyond, that's in front of the garage.
Right, but you can do a nicer
Okay.
understanding of what's happening there, just for
Yeah.
the sake of clarity.
You mean this to this.
Yeah, whatever it is, I don't know.
You've got the low eave on the other side though. So that's just coming straight across, and then this projects down, sits on the beam that's held up by the posts. So I don't think it's as quirky as it looks like in this section. This just comes straight across, and that's just the extension onto these columns.
Just to identify what material, what materials are what, the board there.
And I think, I don't know if it was Dippy or Mike, but I think highlighting the front door as the front door may be beneficial from the courtyard perspective when you're there. No, I know what that one looks like, but the one right next to it, that's next to the garages, looks like a front door. Broken up by an open courtyard, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, when you go from the 6 lights to the 9 lights, you are officially going from a more official to a less official.
The way that they draw this drawing.
So it's, yes,
No, I hear you. I'm just,
no, Dipty's shaking her head.
If you say so.
Well, no, I mean.
I mean,
she
you-
won't know.
the door type's not
So that
gonna,
door and this door, this would be the one, this has the door knocker on it, this one doesn't.
so it's gonna have like,
This is the one you walk up.
is that one gonna have like a pendant light coming down, or instead of it being, right, something like that?
Yeah.
Treat it like a front door with a pendant and some sconces,
I think it already has all
It
that
would
kind
end
of
up
detail,
in
we
the
haven't
bed.
shown that anyway.
right,
So that's, and there are other things if we feel. we
something,
have
the
to
mail,
pop up.
the mail slot, if there's not a mailbox, I don't, something, right?
Yeah,
It just,
I mean, we can work at trying to make that seem less,
well, yeah, I don't know what your scheme is gonna look like after you kinda, right?
cut these all down.
Right, make it smaller, but,
Maybe introduce arches or dormers, arches with domed roofs. Cool, so that gives us something to think about between now and the next meeting. What about, do we wanna think about a sidewalk, or do you guys wanna do like?
I mean, let me know.
they can go.
Well, you guys can plan it and I'll set it up, whatever, I don't know what your schedule is.
Should we wait for him to come back with the revisions before we go?
No, I
No,
think
I
you
think
should,
we should go.
you should get to the site so
And
that
then
you
look
know
at-
what really matters to you when we do it.
All right, we'll send an email around and try to coordinate something and give you a couple times, see if you can make those.
Yeah, I'll make myself available to whatever works for you guys.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's make a motion to continue this to the next meeting, or the second, your seconds, unanimous. Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.